So as I teach, I'm always modifying based upon what I've taught, what I'm going to teach next. So the outline for this section has changed a little bit, and I'm adding in the display property because I want to teach you about the display property right now, because once you know about the display property, it's going to make it easier to understand padding and margin. And the reason it's going to make it easier to understand padding and margin is because we will have elements right next to each other on the page, and we can adjust that. And yeah, so I just thought this is a better time for you to learn about the display property. So that's what we're going to see in this video. It's a new CSS property. It's the display property. And just as a reminder, right, we've got rule sets, and rule sets have the selector and the declaration block, and then they have declarations, and every declaration is a property and a value. We're learning CSS properties. We're learning what these properties are that we can set in a rule set to style and influence the way different tags on our HTML page look. So that's what we're learning. So we're learning the display property here. And there's a couple of different main display properties. So the display property controls how an element is displayed on a web page. Well, you'll notice from our last example, right, when I pop this open and show it in a web page, this is the previous example, these guys right here, these divs, those are stacking vertically. And these images, these are lining up horizontally. Why? Why? What happened? That's because these divs have a default display property of block. So there are block level elements, generally speaking. You know, most elements are either a block level element or an inline level element, an inline element. And so if we go to MDN display and we look that up, and we bring up, you know, block level elements. So this is what I want to look at right here. So here we have block level elements, and it talks about block level versus inline. So here are all of the different block level elements right here, and you can see that a div is a block level element. And you can read about what block level elements are. Elements are usually either block level elements or inline elements. A block level element occupies the entire space of its parent element container, thereby creating a block. This article helps explain what that means. I'll explain the rest from here. But that's a good thing to go read right there. So basically this guy right here is going to take up all of the space it can, left to right, and whatever space it needs up and down, and it takes its whole line, and then the next element is going to be on the next line. So a block level element takes up a whole line. It's a block, right? Just like a block would take up space and then the next block would be on top of it, only we're building it from the top down. All right, block level element. Inline element, an inline element is just going to be in line with other elements. So images are inline level elements. It's an inline element, and divs are block level elements, and that's all part of the display property. So if we had no width here, this block level element, and let me just comment that out. Before I do that, I'm going to close this file. I'm going to copy this, so Control C. I'm going to go up here, Control V, and make this 014 display. Cool. And I'm going to open up index and then right click main CSS, split vertically, and now I've got that over there. So if we had no width right here, let me take that off, and I preview this page. There we go. That looks horrible. But that background image is still right there with that dog, and it's covering it. What would happen if I took cover off? Just kind of having fun. Refresh that. So it fills in part of it. What happens if I take repeat off? Right? Cool. It's repeating across it. That's kind of neat, but too many dogs for me. So Control Y, Control Y, Control Y to delete each of those lines and refresh. And there are my block level elements. And then down below, I've got my inline elements, my images. So I could change the display of this stuff. I'm going to get rid of width for this example. Nah, I'll leave it on. And we'll leave width right there because that will be interesting. Cool. I could change the display. So the display, I can make display none. And when I come back and refresh, those elements are gone. I said display, display none. I could change it to display block. And it comes back, and that's its default level. And because I have a width, right, and a height, it just does its default. So it's a block level element. I could also change that to inline. And we can see what that does. And so that smashed them all together. If we were to zoom in right there, we'd see them all smashed together. Those are all inline. The images are all inline, so these are all in one line. And if I change this to Inline Block, which is another one of the settings, kapow. It puts them in line, but it gives enough space for each of them. All right, so that's the display property. And the properties you should learn, the values you should learn about the display property right now is that we have display inline, display block, display inline block, and display none. So I'm going to leave this all set the way it is right here, display inline block, and that's going to give us this look right here. And then in the next video, we are going to do the stuff where we do the padding and the margins, and we're going to see what padding and margins do to affect the spacing between the different elements.